When we think of the space race, one name shines brightest. Yuri Gagarin, the first human in orbit, a global icon, a symbol of Soviet triumph. His 1961 flight in Vostok 1 is a cornerstone of human history. But behind this celebrated moment lies a story of immense secrecy, fierce competition, and untold risks. A story that, for decades, remained locked away in classified archives. This is the hidden history of the Soviet space program. During the Cold War, space wasn't just about science. It was a battleground for ideology. For the Soviet Union and the United States, every launch was a test of national strength. Success was broadcast to the world as proof of superiority. Failure, however, was a state secret. This obsession with perception created a heavily censored version of history, where only the victories were ever recorded. The early days of Soviet rocketry were perilous. The engineering was groundbreaking, but also incredibly dangerous. Test launches frequently ended in spectacular explosions. Getting a rocket off the ground, let alone into orbit, was a monumental challenge. Unlike the public broadcasts of NASA's trials and errors, Soviet setbacks were completely hidden from view. Information was a weapon, and it was controlled with an iron fist. The world only saw the polished, successful, final product. This culture of secrecy has fueled one of the most enduring mysteries of the space race, the lost cosmonauts. For years, amateur radio operators and even some Western tracking stations claimed to have intercepted faint transmissions voice, heartbeats, distress calls from space. Dated *before*. Gagarin's flight, these tantalizing fragments led to speculation that other cosmonauts had been launched into orbit and perished, their missions erased from history. Official Soviet and later Russian records have consistently denied these claims, attributing the signals to ground tests or unmanned probes. While most historians are skeptical and point to a lack of concrete evidence, the sheer secrecy of the program means the debate continues. It highlights the gap between documented fact and the shadows cast by Cold War propaganda. Before risking human lives, Soviet scientists relied on a different kind of pioneer. Animals, dogs, in particular, became the unsung heroes of space medicine. Names like Leka, Belka, and Strelka are famous, but they were just a few of the many animals sent on suborbital and orbital flights. These missions were crucial for understanding how a living organism would cope with the extreme G-forces of launch, the strange effects of weightlessness, and the harsh radiation of space. Many of these animal missions were successful, providing the vital data needed to clear the path for Gagarin. But many were not. The fates of the animals on failed flights were rarely, if ever, disclosed. Their sacrifice was a necessary, though often hidden, step on the ladder to human space. Beyond the civilian program celebrated in headlines, another, more clandestine effort was underway. The militarization of space. From the very beginning, the Soviet military saw the strategic potential of the high ground. Engineers worked in parallel on projects that sound like science fiction: orbital reconnaissance platforms to spy on the West, anti-satellite weapons to disable enemy assets, and even concepts for crewed military space stations. While many of these programs, like the Almaz station, were highly experimental and faced numerous setbacks, they reveal the dual nature of the Soviet space effort. It wasn't just about exploration, it was about securing a strategic advantage in the Cold War. At the heart of this entire massive enterprise was one man whose identity was one of the Soviet Union's most guarded secrets. Sergei, the chief designer. He was the visionary engineer, the brilliant manager, the driving force behind Sputnik, Gagarin, and every major early Soviet space success. Yet, to the outside world, and even to most people within the Soviet Union, he was anonymous. He was never named in the press, never appeared in public ceremonies. His authority was absolute, but his existence was classified. It was only after his unexpected death in 1966 that his name was finally revealed, and the world began to understand the genius who had masterminded the Soviet charge into the cosmos. For the cosmonauts themselves, training was a grueling ordeal. They were subjected to punishing physical and psychological tests designed to push them to their absolute limits. They endured crushing G-forces in centrifuges, spent weeks in soundproof isolation chambers to simulate the loneliness of space, and practiced endless emergency procedures for technology that was still highly experimental. Early spacecraft had primitive life support and rudimentary escape systems. Every single launch was a leap into the unknown, a gamble where the stakes were life and death. The calm, smiling face of Yuri Gagarin post-flight masked the immense pressure and incredible risks he and his fellow cosmonauts faced every day. As the years passed, new missions were planned, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Some, like the ambitious N-1 moon rocket program, were plagued by technical failures and ultimately cancelled, their existence denied for decades. Others, like the Voskhod program that saw the first spacewalk by Alexei Linov, were propaganda coups designed to score points against the Americans, even if it meant taking extraordinary risks. The narrative was always paramount. Image was everything. Today, as archives in Russia slowly open, historians are piecing together a more complete and complex picture. Memos, design blueprints, and declassified reports are helping to clarify old myths and uncover new details. We are learning more about the internal rivalries between design bureaus, the political pressures exerted from the Kremlin, and the forgotten contributors whose work was essential but the line between documented history and Cold War legend is becoming clearer. But many questions still remain. The story of the Soviet space program is far more than a simple tale of triumph. It's a complex saga of human brilliance, political ambition, and profound secrecy. It reminds us that behind every great leap for mankind, there are countless unseen efforts, unheralded individuals, and risks taken far from the public eye. This isn't a story about conspiracies, but about the incredible complexity and human determination that defined one of the most intense and secretive technological endeavors in history. When we think of the space race, we picture a two-horse race, the United States versus the Soviet Union. Sputnik's beep echoing from orbit, Yuri Gagarin's historic flight, and Neil Armstrong's one small step. It's a story of titans clashing in the cosmos. But what if I told you that the story we know is just the surface, that beneath the veneer of celebrated achievements and public triumphs lies a hidden history? A shadow space program shrouded in secrecy, ambition, and even tragedy. For decades, the true extent of the Soviet Union's cosmic ambitions remained locked away in classified archives. Today, we're gonna unlock those files using declassified documents, first-hand accounts, and historical research. We will journey into the secret heart of the Soviet space program, prepared to discover the missions that never flew, the cosmonauts, whose names were erased, and the colossal machines that were designed to conquer not just the moon, but the entire solar system. This is the story of the space race you were never meant to see. But the moon wasn't their only secret destination. The Soviets had their eyes on Mars. In the early 1960s, they designed the TMK, or Heavy Interplanetary Spacecraft. This was a plan for a 3-year manned mission to fly by Mars and Venus, a grand tour of the inner solar system. The spacecraft would have been assembled in Earth orbit and propelled by nuclear electric engines. The crew of 3 would live in a relatively spacious habitat, even cultivating a small greenhouse for food and oxygen. The mission was scheduled for 1971, timed to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Vladimir Lenin's birth. However, the immense technological challenges and the focus on the moon race meant the TMK project never got off the ground. The dream of red planet explorers was shelved. Another ambitious chapter closed before it could be written. Perhaps the most militaristic and audacious of all the secret programs was Almaz, the military space station. Publicly, the Soviets launched the Salyut series of civilian space stations. But hidden behind this peaceful facade were 3 highly classified military stations, code-named Almaz. These were not just scientific outposts. They were orbital spy platforms, launched under the Salyut designation to fool the West. Almaz stations were equipped with massive high-resolution spy cameras and, incredibly, a cannon. Yes, a space cannon. A modified 23mm aircraft cannon was fitted to the station, designed to defend against potential American anti-satellite weapons. In 1975, the crew of the Almaz station Salyut 3 remotely test-fired this cannon in orbit, marking the only time a conventional weapon is known to have been fired in space. The Almaz program gave the Soviet military an unprecedented eye in the sky. But the high cost and the advent of more effective unmanned spy satellites eventually led to its cancellation. Even more sci-fi than a space cannon was the Palyuskiv project. In the 1980s, as a response to America's Star Wars Strategic Defense Initiative, the Soviets developed their own space-based weapons platform. The Palyus was a massive, 80-ton unmanned spacecraft designed to carry a powerful 1 megawatt carbon dioxide laser. Its purpose was to shoot down American SDI satellites, disguised as a science module for the Mir space station. The Polyus was launched in May 1987 aboard the Energia rocket, the most powerful rocket ever built. The launch itself was a success. However, after separating from the Energa booster, the Polyus spacecraft was supposed to perform a 180-degree turn to fire its main engines and enter its final orbit. Due to a software error, it rotated a full 360 degrees. Instead of boosting into orbit, its engines fired in the wrong direction, sending the billion-dollar laser weapon plummeting back to Earth, where it burned up over the Pacific Ocean. It was a spectacular and costly failure, and with the Cold War winding down, it marked the end of the Soviet Union's dream of a space battle station. Before Gagarin's famous flight, there were whispers of lost cosmonauts. Soviet pilots, who allegedly perished in secret. Failed space attempts before the world ever knew the USSR was in the race. While many of these tales, like the Judico-Cordiglia brothers' recordings of a dying cosmonaut, are largely considered hoaxes or misinterpretations of other transmissions, the Soviet system's obsession with secrecy certainly fueled the speculation. We do know of real tragedies that were covered up. Cosmonaut Valentin Bondarenko died in a horrific fire during a ground-based training exercise in a high-oxygen chamber in 1961. Just weeks before Gagarin's flight, his death was kept secret for over 2 decades. The truth is, the line between myth and reality was deliberately blurred. The Soviets only announced successes. Failures, and the cosmonauts involved in them, were simply erased from the official record, creating a perfect illusion of infallible progress. While there's no concrete proof of cosmonauts dying in orbit before Gagarin, the culture of secrecy means we may never know the complete story. Finally, there was the Spiral program, the Soviet answer to the American X-20 dinosaur and a precursor to the space shuttle. Starting in the 1960s, the Spiral was a reusable spaceplane, a small, single-pilot orbital vehicle that would be launched into space on the back of a hypersonic mothership. After its mission, it would glide back to Earth and land on a runway like a conventional airplane. The project was incredibly ambitious and forward-thinking. A subscale atmospheric test vehicle, the MiG-105, was built and flew several successful test flights. It was nicknamed Lapat, Russian for a type of simple peasant shoe, because of its upturned nose. Despite its promise, the Spiral program was cancelled in favor of the Buran shuttle, a larger vehicle that more closely copied the American space shuttle design. The Buran itself only flew once, an unmanned orbital flight in 1988, before the collapse of the Soviet Union grounded the program forever. But the legacy of Spiral, the idea of a reusable, winged spaceplane, lived on, influencing spaceplane designs for decades to come. From moon rockets that tore themselves apart on the launch pad, 2-armed space stations and laser battle platforms. The secret history of the Soviet space program is a tale of incredible ambition, stunning innovation, and heartbreaking failure. It reveals a side of the space race driven, not just by exploration, but by military strategy, political paranoia, and a relentless desire to achieve supremacy at any cost. These forgotten projects and silent stories are a crucial part of our shared human journey to the stars, reminding us that for every celebrated giant leap, there are countless hidden steps, stumbles, and falls along the way. The ghosts of the N1, Almaz, and Polyus still linger in the steppes of Bikaner, a testament to a cosmic dream that was as vast and complex as the Soviet Union itself. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the hidden history of space, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the stories you thought you knew. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something new. Creating this content for you is my absolute passion, and your support means the world to me. If you liked what you saw and want to see more, it would be amazing if you could hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to join our community and stay updated with all the new videos coming your way. And if you want to be the very first to know when a new video drops, make sure to click that notification bell too. That way, you won't miss a thing. I love reading your comments, so feel free to share your thoughts below. Thanks again for being here, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell button to stay notified.